Hello and welcome to Arnie's Short Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. I'm going to try and upload a new story each day. The Ghostly Guardian. The ancient house creaked as Holly Arnold unpacked the last of her boxes. She had just moved to the Isle of Wight to escape the bustle of city life and finally offer her daughter, Lily, a peaceful childhood by the sea. But as she surveyed the dark wooden beams and peeling wallpaper of their new home, she couldn't shake the feeling of eyes upon her. Shadows flickered in the corners, and the air held a coldness that seemed too chill for the mild September evening. From the first night, Lily took to talking to someone she called Miss Maggie. At first, Holly thought little of it. An imaginary friend was harmless and even comforting in a new home. But as the weeks passed, the stories about Miss Maggie grew unsettlingly vivid. Lily described Maggie as a woman in a long, old-fashioned dress, with dark hair and sad eyes. "She watches over me, Mummy," Lily whispered one night. "She told me she's here to keep me safe," Holly nodded, attempting a comforting smile. That night, her dreams were filled with visions of a pale woman in a vintage gown gliding silently through the house, eyes hauntingly hollow. Holly awoke with a gasp, heart pounding, and found her bedroom window wide open, letting in the chill of the early dawn. Days turned into weeks, and Lily's obsession with Miss Maggie only grew. She spent hours in her room, whispering secrets to the empty space, and sometimes Holly caught her looking toward the stairs with a worried expression. "Miss Maggie says not to go down to the basement." Holly felt a cold prickle at the base of her neck. "Why would she say that, sweetheart? She said it's where her life ended." She had avoided the basement since moving in. Something about the heavy padlock on the door had seemed unnecessary, almost ominous. Curiosity gnawed at her, but she dismissed it as nerves until the day she caught a glimpse of a shadowy figure standing at the top of the basement stairs, watching her, then vanishing as quickly as it appeared. Determined to confront her fears, Holly waited until Lily was asleep and then took a flashlight to the basement door. She broke the padlock with an old crowbar and, heart-pounding, descended the narrow staircase. The air grew colder with each step, and an overpowering scent of mildew filled her nostrils. The basement was cluttered with dusty relics, broken furniture, yellowed newspaper clippings, and boxes filled with clothes. Holly was about to retreat when her light fell on something peculiar, a torn wedding veil, its fabric tattered and stained. Her fingers trembled as she reached out to touch it, and a chill passed through her like a warning. She spotted a small wooden trunk in the corner, almost hidden beneath a pile of old coats. With effort, she dragged it into the open and unlatched it. Inside, she found a leather-bound diary, its pages faded but still legible. The diary belonged to Margaret Collins, Miss Maggie. Holly read with growing horror as the entries described Margaret's dreams of a peaceful life on the Isle of Wight with her fiancé, William. But it ended abruptly with a scrawled entry that spoke of betrayal. William had left her, and in her grief she had sought solace in the basement. It was there that she had taken her last breath, her heart shattered beyond repair. The final entry was a chilling revelation. "I cannot rest. The one who took my peace lives in this very house. They must suffer as I suffered." Holly's hand flew to her mouth. She realized that Margaret's spirit was not just lingering, it was trapped, bound by a need for revenge. As she stood to leave, Holly felt an icy hand graze her shoulder. She spun around, and there, hovering just inches from her face, was Miss Maggie, her eyes hollow, her face a mask of anguish and fury. Holly stumbled back, her flashlight flickering, and Maggie's form seemed to grow darker, her eyes fixed with a hatred that sent chills down Holly's spine. "You..." Maggie hissed, her voice like a distant wail. "You and your child, they're intruders." "No, Maggie," Holly whispered. "We didn't know it. We mean no harm." Maggie's ghostly figure limped closer, her fingers reaching out. "I will protect Lily," Maggie said. "But you are not welcome here." Terrified, Holly scrambled back up the stairs. She locked it, her hands shaking, and leaned against it, heart pounding. That night, as Holly lay awake, she heard faint laughter drifting from Lily's room, the sound eerily mixed with whispers that did not belong to her daughter. It was Maggie guarding Lily as she had promised. And Holly knew, with dread settling deep within her bones, that she could not leave. Maggie's spirit was bound to the house, and now so was she. From that night on, Holly felt her life slipping into Maggie's grasp. Shadows moved just out of sight, and cold gusts brushed past her in empty rooms. Sometimes she'd catch glimpses of Maggie in the mirrors, always watching, always whispering to Lily. In her final entry in her own journal, Holly wrote, "I fear my daughter has chosen her guardian, and I have become a ghost in my own home, and on the quiet Isle of Wight, in the eerie, ancient house, the two spirits, the living and the dead, settled into a silent, uneasy coexistence." As the days stretched on, Holly found herself losing touch with reality. Maggie's presence grew stronger, filling the house with an oppressive energy that seemed to suck the life from her every time she entered a room. Her once bright daughter became pale and distant, spending more time in the shadows talking softly with her ghostly friend. One evening, after a particularly cold day when all the windows rattled and frost had formed inside the glass, Holly decided to confront Maggie once and for all. She couldn't bear to lose her daughter to this spirit, to feel herself fading from Lily's life. Arming herself with an old cross she found in one of the dusty trunks, she made her way to Lily's room. She held her breath, heart pounding, as she saw Lily standing by the window, speaking in hushed tones to what seemed to be empty air. "Maggie," Holly said, her voice trembling. "I know you're here, I know you're hurting, but this has to stop. Lily needs me, too. You can't just take her away from me." Lily turned, her eyes strange and distant. Then a low, rasping voice, not her daughter's, responded. "You cannot understand what it means to be betrayed, to be left in this lonely place, waiting, aching for eternity." The voice filled the room. Holly's fingers clutched the cross tighter, but she kept her gaze on her daughter. "I do understand," Maggie, Holly said. "But it's time for you to rest. You can't hold on to her like this." A cold breeze swept through the room, and in the shifting shadows. Her pale face was drawn and hollow, her eyes dark with a sorrow so deep it seemed to drain the warmth from the very air. "Leave," Maggie hissed, stepping closer. "You do not belong here. Lily belongs with me. I am her guardian." "No," Holly said. "I'm her mother, and I won't let you take her." A shudder ran through the room, and suddenly it felt as though her heart was being squeezed by an icy hand. She gasped, struggling to stay standing. She knew she was on the brink of losing her daughter to the spirit's grip, and with her remaining strength, Holly forced herself to speak. "Lily, remember who I am. Remember who you are. Maggie is a part of the past. She doesn't need you. Not anymore." For a moment, Lily's face flickered between fear and sadness, her eyes regaining some of their usual brightness. "Mummy," she whispered. "Yes, sweetheart," Holly managed to say. "Come back to me. Maggie doesn't need us anymore." Maggie let out a low wail, and her form began to flicker. Holly held out her arms, reaching for her daughter, feeling the weight of Maggie's sorrow loosening its grip on her child. Maggie's voice echoed through the room, filled with a desperation that made Holly's heart ache. "I don't want to be alone." But as Lily stepped fully into her mother's embrace, Maggie's form faded. Her anguished cries grew softer and softer until they were just a whisper, then silence. The cold left the room, and Holly held her daughter tightly, both of them breathing shakily in the newfound warmth. "It is she?" Lily whispered. Holly nodded, still clutching her child. "Yes, sweetheart, she's gone." She finally found peace, and as the two of them sat there, wrapped in the quiet, Holly couldn't help but feel a strange sadness for Maggie, a woman who had lost everything and lingered alone. In the months that followed, the house seemed to shed its dark atmosphere. Sunlight filled the rooms again, and laughter returned to their lives. Lily no longer spoke of imaginary friends or watched the stairs with worried eyes. But sometimes, on quiet evenings, Holly would catch a glimpse of something in the corner of her eye, a shadow, or the faintest rustle of a dress in the breeze, and she would feel a strange calmness settle over her. Maggie was gone, yes, but some part of her spirit would always linger as the ghostly guardian she had claimed to be. And Holly, despite everything, couldn't help but feel grateful. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please don't forget to like, and even better, like and subscribe. Thank you very much, and I hope you have had or have a great day.